According to IMDb, there have been 209 adaptations of the works of H.P. Lovecraft in cinema and television over the last century. Richard Stanley's 2019 movie Color Out of Space may well be the best one of them. This movie is an adaptation of a 1927 short story, The Color Out of Space, written by Lovecraft as a way of going against the grain of the science fiction genre as it was in the 1920s. Lovecraft wanted to create aliens that were really alien and not just human beings in another form. He really pulled out all the stops and gave us an alien invasion of a small country farm in rural Massachusetts, where the invasion is inexplicable. Everything about it is beyond human knowledge and human understanding. And that's kind of cool. There have been a number of adaptations of this particular short story. In 1965 there was an adaptation with Boris Karloff called Die, Monster, Die. There was another one in the 1980s and another yet again in 2008. But this one, directed by Richard Stanley, really gives us the full Lovecraft in the best possible way. Nicolas Cage stars as Nathan Gardner, a goofy dad rural farmer who's inherited a house from his father. He lives there with his wife, played by Jolly Richardson, who's an online stockbroker who has recently survived a mastectomy, and his three children, Lavinia, Benny, and Jack. Lavinia is a Wiccan goth girl, Benny is a stoner, and Jack is a little kid who loves dinosaurs. The whole family's a little bit kooky. They live on this rural farm. When it's Dad's turn to make dinner, he makes a French cassoulet and gets out a bottle of wine. He's that kind of guy. And Nicolas Cage does a really nice job of playing the goofy dad. And in fact, the escalation to insanity is very much in the skill set of Nicolas Cage. And in this movie, it's entirely appropriate that he does it. A meteor crashes on the farm and starts emitting a strange magenta light. Soon afterwards, a thunderstorm arrives and all of the lightning bolts seem to hit the meteor, which then disappears. But then stuff starts happening. Strange pink plants start appearing, purple vines start growing around trees, odd insects with 9 eyes start flitting around the garden, and the people and the animals and the environment and in fact the laws of physics start changing. Richard Stanley's an interesting director. He made a couple of really fine films in the 1990s. Hardware, which was definitely hard cyberpunk, and Dust Devil, which was very much in the horror genre. He went on to direct a version of The Island of Dr. Moreau, which was spectacularly unsuccessful. He was thrown off the film by the studio, and it was completed by John Frankenheimer, and yet was still a failure. In fact, there's a documentary about Richard Stanley's journey in making that film. So he's had a very checkered career. But in this one, it's a passion project for him. He read Lovecraft stories when he was a kid, and he's very much in tune with the Lovecraftian mindset and is deeply knowledgeable about the Lovecraftian mythos. And in this movie, Color Out of Space, he really does give us the best adaptation you're going to get of Lovecraft up to this point. The weird lighting with the magenta and pink and purple emphases and color grading really start making what seems to be an ordinary and quite pretty little farm into a strange and alien place. We also get a hippie living on the property in a cabin, played by Tommy Chong, in a very Tommy Chong role, but there is an edge of menace about it as the problems escalate. And I think it's entirely appropriate that they got somebody like Tommy Chong to play the character of Ezra. He really is an interesting old hippie, and he does seem to be the only person who is, more than the other people in the movie, fully aware of what's happening and is aware of the threat. We also get an outsider, because you always need an outsider in this kind of film. A hydrologist called Ward Phillips, who is surveying the valley because a hydroelectric dam is going to go in and flood most of the valley. He comes along and meets Lavinia while she's doing a Wiccan ritual. He meets the family and goes on his way, but then starts discovering that there are problems with the water table, and there's a pollutant in the water of the water table on the farm and around it, which is unable to be analysed. Things start going from bad to worse then. Gardner family starts going insane, each in their own way. Of course, you've got Nicolas Cage in this role, so you get that bit where There's a moment in Nicolas Cage movies when he goes crazy, when his face goes asymmetrical. And we get asymmetrical Cage here. He starts going from the goofy dad to someone a lot more menacing and threatening, and becomes an insane monster by the end of the film. It really is a subtly done but gradual and relentless descent into madness for Nathan Gardner. We also get Jolie Richardson's character, who goes through some incredible body horror, which parallels, of course, the fact that she's had a mastectomy and is dealing with the consequences of that. The thematic continuation of those particular problems makes for a really interesting film. We get Benny, who has to look after the family alpacas because Nathan, being the kind of goofy asshole he is, invested in alpacas because he thought he could sell alpaca meat. Didn't even know that alpacas are grown for their fur. He's that kind of guy. And Lavinia increasingly starts looking for supernatural and occult ways of handling what's happening to her family. Meanwhile, little Jack, the youngest of the family, starts hearing a man who is calling to him from the family well. This movie does go to really crazy extremes. It uses a beautiful combination of computer generated effects and physical horror effects, which at once or twice look a little bit like a Stuart Gordon movie from the 1990s, but in context they work really well. The acting is first class. All of the actors bring their A game to this one. The family feels lived in, which makes all of the things that happen to them that much more powerful. It works on so many levels, this movie. It is a tour de force, a masterful piece of horror, and it does the job required, which is to give us an alien invasion which is in its entirety incomprehensible, inexplicable, and unknowable, which is at the heart of the horror that H.P. Lovecraft has given us. You should really check this one out. It punches above a $9 million budget. It really shows us what can be done if you plan well enough, if you've got the passion and the imagination to make a movie, which on the face of it isn't going to be popular. It didn't make money because it hit just at the time when the pandemic came through, and of course it couldn't go to the cinemas. But if you get a chance to pick up a copy of it, either on streaming service or on physical media as I did, it shows the ways in which a modern family fractures in the same way the Village of the Damned, which I talked about in the last video, shows the ways that 1950s families can fracture. It is a powerful piece of cinema, and every piece of foreshadowing you get in the setup to the eventual horrors has a payoff. There is not one piece of wasted footage, one piece of wasted detail. It really does give us an accomplished, masterful horror movie, which you should check out. I love it when a good horror movie comes along and totally shatters our preconceptions of what the genre can do. And Color Out of Space, for me, does that. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like and leave me a comment and tell me what you thought of it if you've seen it, or what other horror movies have really affected you. In the recent years, there have been so many of them, but so few of them are done well. Anyway, look after yourselves. Keep watching some good movies, watch some bad movies. Stay safe, wash your hands. And I will be back very, very soon with another video. Take care, and I'll talk to you then.